to work on the visa production at the embassy, and sometimes it's not enough. So even the charge d'affaires should go there and pay stickers in Indian passports. But looking at the pictures and imagining the pleasure of the experience that these people will have in the Swiss Alps, yes, you can do it. That's something you can do it, of course. Second example, of course, the economy. We have 330 businesses, Swiss businesses, operating in India. It's not bad. We are 1,000 in China, 330 here in India, but that's just the beginning. 75 years, still young for a country. And we are currently negotiating a free trade agreement with the Indian authorities, and we hope to be able to conclude it eventually this year. And that would be a fantastic signal for all our businesses to come to India and to make this number even more blossoming than what we have now. A third example, very much needed actually, sustainability. Last year, the Swiss Cooperation and Development Agency supported a fantastic project between ITT Delhi and EPFL Lausanne in order to produce a new kind of cement, a cement which will be less enriched in carbon emissions than the current one. 40% less. It makes a difference. It's a revolution in the cement industry, and it's about to become the new normal in this business. And this is thanks to a discovery between both our countries, making our friendship even more sustainable. Now, Switzerland, is an innovative country, but when it comes to digitalization, we have a lot to learn from you, from India. And that's why I'm very much looking forward to the conversation tonight. And yes, I think that we will be learning a lot together. Thank you very much. And on this note, I would like to ask my colleague, Mr. Roger Dubach, are you with us?
Yes.
To take over, please. Roger.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me. And of course, I would be happy to be with you physically. But can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. You may proceed.
Okay. So thanks very much for this invitation. I'm happy to provide a short introduction of Switzerland's concept on digital self-determination at today's event. We are very pleased that through our collaboration with the embassy in New Delhi and Swissnex, and that of Point of View and Design Beku, the concept on digital self-determination could be further tested in the context of disability. The theme of disability and its intersection to the digital sphere offers a wide range of relevant questions relating to digital self-determination. You have worked out those questions during the 3 previous workshops. And one question which is really in the center is, are there technology solutions to overcome barriers in the daily life of people with disabilities? And is there a digital space that enables people with disabilities not just to exist in this space, but also to have agency? And this is at the core of the idea of digital self-determination, it's about agency in the digital space. So the empowerment of people and entities in their digital lives. So where do we come from with this concept? So we started with the, we started with the idea that ordinary people and citizens are primarily users in the digital world with a limited say on what happens with their data and with a limited say on how they could have agency in the digital space. And this is, of course, especially true for disabled persons as well. Against this background, and considering that there is an enormous untapped potential for the use of data, we must ask ourselves, how can we put humans back in the driving seat in a digitally connected world? And how can we fully harness the potential that data holds for society and the economy as a whole? So these questions are being tackled in Switzerland's current digital foreign policy strategy. Over the last few years, Switzerland has been developing a possible approach for a global and sustainable data governance based precisely on this idea of digital self-determination. I would like to highlight two aspects, further aspects on this idea of digital self-determination. First, there is an individual and a collective component to the concept of digital self-determination. As for the individual component, at the core of this concept lies the idea that individuals, entities, and society as a whole should be able to determine what actions they take in the digital space. The collective component illustrates that in the digital space, the self is only conceivable in a networked context. The social and cultural environment forms the basis for how self-determination is exercised. The second aspect is the link between digital self-determination and trustworthy data spaces. We believe that it's very difficult to exercise digital self-determination just as such in the internet today. So we think there's a need for trustworthy data spaces. And we had many discussions around how to create or establish such data spaces. And so far, we have identified 4 principles we think which are crucial for building trust in a data space. First, the principle of transparency for users regarding the functioning, the use and the governance of the data room. Second principle is control. The handling of data in the data room should be freely controlled and managed by the actors concerned using various instruments. Third principle, fairness. The principle of fairness requires that all actors in a data room be treated fairly. And finally, the fourth principle, effectiveness. The principle of effectiveness helps maximize the functioning, usefulness, and sustainability of data rooms. So, in sum, our goal is to establish the concept of digital self-determination and trustworthy data spaces as a guiding principle for data governance. And I'm very much convinced that already the 3 previous workshops you had and also the one tonight are crucial for better understanding the needs and also ways on how to implement a concept such as digital self-determination. So thank you very much, and I'm very much looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Roger. Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome from my side as well. I am Jonas Brunsvig. I am the CEO of SwissNex in India, and I get to be the host tonight. I am also the Consul General of Switzerland to South India. And this marks a special occasion for us because it concludes a journey that for SwissNex started in September 2021, when Roger and his team at the Directorate of International Law at the Ministry of External Affairs got in touch with us in India, with the embassy and with SwissNex, saying we have been doing these studios around the world and we would love to do one in India. Why don't you see what you can put together? I had just been in India for a couple of months, and the topic of digital self-determination was not one that we were particularly well versed in. So what I did is I started putting out some feelers, and because my network in India was not yet strong and I had moved here from the United States, I got in touch with Ethan Zuckerman, who was my advisor in the US, and asked him, whom in India do I need to talk to about digital self-determination? He gave me a couple of names. The first name was Sunil Abraham, who was one of the founders of the Bangalore Center for Internet and Society and is now with Meta. And he was the first person to suggest that we should look at the intersection of digital self-determination and disability. We loved the idea immediately and discarded all the other options that we were considering at the point. And then through a connection with another person that Ethan had put me in touch with, Achal Prabhala, we got connected to Bishaka Datta and the Point of View team. And that was January 2022. And in fact, exactly a year ago today, on Friday, May the 13th, 2022, I was on a layover in Frankfurt when we had our first group call around launching this studio on digital self-determination and disability. And a few people in the room here were actually part of that call. On top of Bishaka and Debarati from the Point of View team, we have Sunil Abraham, who joined all 4 studios. We had Pranav, whom you'll hear from shortly on the panel. And we also had Nirmita Narasimhan, whom some of you have heard of speak this morning in the policy session that we had. From there, it took another while until we finally got started with the studios in February this year. And like you've heard many times, this is the concluding studio that we held today. The first one was in Delhi in February. The second one was in Mumbai, and that's where we onboarded Padmini and the wonderful team at Design Beku, who became partners of the whole endeavor. And then the third and the fourth one have taken place in Bangalore in April and today. Now, why am I telling all of this backstory? I think I'm telling it because I think it epitomizes and captures very well what we do and what we are about at SwissNex in India. We strive to accelerate positive transformations at the frontiers of knowledge. And here we had the opportunity to receive this mandate and to look at digital self-determination and to convene a gathering. And I am sharing this story in the hopes that maybe, who knows, on May 13th, 2024, somebody who is in the audience tonight, online or in person, or who has participated in one of the 4 studios, gets to tell the story of how, when they participated in the studios, have forged a collaboration or a partnership that has led to a new venture or a new endeavor. This is precisely what our role is at SwissNex, as an attempt to engineer serendipity. Now, as I wrap up my opening remarks and hand off the stage to Padmini and the panel, I also want to share a personal reflection. I feel like for me, this studio, these 4 studios have been a form of perspectival therapy. I was rather ignorant of a lot of the things that I have learned, and I think many of us have learned in terms of what it looks like for physically disabled persons to participate in the digital realm. How are they enabled? How are they hindered by what technology enables? What are the policies? How does society think about these very important questions? And what are the implications? And we've had a lively discussion earlier extending not just to persons with disabilities, but also looking at a wider population if we think of an aging population, which is something that is very much a concern for us in Switzerland and in the West, or if we think of an illiterate population, which is rather a larger concern here in India. So I want to leave with that. And now maybe some of you in the audience who are also new to the topic will get an introduction to the perspectival therapy that I have just alluded to. And with that, I would love to invite Padmini and Pranav and Deepak to join us on stage. And we will have Stefan and Nidhi joining us online.
Right, I hope you can hear me. Yeah. Okay, good evening. Thank you so much for being here. It's been an exciting day in many ways. I'm Padmini Ray Murray. I'm the founder and director of Design Beku. We work at the intersection of design justice and digital rights. So it's been a great joy to be doing this work with Point of View and with SwissNex. We've learned a lot. We've thought a lot together. We've brainstormed. We've thought about what we've been calling dream machines together. And what we are really hoping for is to think of a way forward as to how to make those dream machines reality. And I think what we have learned is that it requires a combination of factors to bring these things bring them to life. So we need mandates from the government. We need help with policy that insists on making technology accessible for different demographics. We need designers, developers, technologists, people who make digital products to think more carefully and in more insightful ways about how to use technology in ways that it can be accessed easily and readily by a wide demographic. So today we'll be talking about how we're thinking about disability through the lens of digital self-determination, which I admit was a new concept to me when Stefan and when Jonas and Bishaka brought it to me. And I think we've found it really kind of a fascinating kind of way by which to look at disability. So I think we have a splendid panel with us today, all of whom are immensely well qualified to speak to the topic of digital self-determination and disability. I'll just do some quick introductions and then we'll launch into the panel. So we have with us Stefan Verhulst, who is the co-founder and the Chief Research Development Officer at GovLab at NYU. And GovLab is an action research center which is dedicated to improving governance in people's lives through advances in technology. We have with us Prateek Madhav, who is sitting on the stage with me. He is from the Assist Tech Foundation. He is Jaipur-born, NIT and IIM Calcutta educated corporate digital technology leader. Turned happy social entrepreneur, something we all aspire to. His belief in technology making a significant impact in lives of people with disabilities encouraged him to give up an 18-year career in the IT industry to focus on promoting disability assistive technology startups through his venture Assist Tech Foundation. With me on the stage, I also have Pranav Savla, who founded Vidya Drishti. He is the CEO of Vidya Drishti, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping students improve their writing skills and express themselves more freely. Pranav is also still a high school student and has intimidated us with his tremendous mind and abilities and has just been an asset to this whole project. So thanks for being here, Pranav. And last but not least, do we have Nidhi here now?
Yes, you have me here.
Excellent. Okay, great. So just a quick introduction of Nidhi. Nidhi Goyal is the founder and executive director of a leading national award-winning organization, Rising Flame, working on leaderships and the rights of women and youth with disability. With over 12 years of experience in the disability rights and gender justice, Nidhi currently sits on the steering committee of Civil 20 in India's G20 presidency and has been instrumental in the creation of a standalone working group on disability justice within the Civil 20. Right, so I think we should start now. I'm going to start off with Stefan, because I think you are uniquely placed to tell us about the concept of digital self-determination, since your team kind of spearheaded the idea. So if you could maybe tell us a little bit about what to use digital self-determination is, but also why you felt it was so necessary to bring into the forefront as a research topic and idea. Thanks.
Great. Hope you can hear me. Thanks so much for this kind of introduction, and thanks for having me. I wished I was all with you and was able to also engage in person as well. And thanks for the question. And I think Roger actually was the one who spearheaded the initiative and is kind of the father of the idea. So I will just add some comments and some reflections to what Roger already introduced as well. And from my point of view, the whole concept and the principle of digital self-determination fits within kind of three facts of today's life, or three premises. The first fact, which already was indicated, is that obviously digitalization has led to a massive datafication of society. We have more data than ever before. We have not only more data, we have different types of data, cell phone data, mobility data, you name it. And then on top of that, we also have a different velocity of the data. We actually can understand almost in real time what's happening in society. And we can also have a much granular understanding geographically and sociodemographically on what is really happening in society as such. So if we are smart, we can actually start using this new asset of data that digitalization has brought in order to address society's ills, in order to address society challenges such as climate change, but also a growing inequality in society at large. Now, unfortunately, and that's fact number two, or premise number two, that informs the concept and the principle of digital self-determination, obviously there are challenges that have been created as a result of datafication. Most of the attention quite often goes to the potential misuse of data, but there is another big challenge that actually is equally important and needs to be addressed through new means. And that's the issue of asymmetries, the fact that we have new divides being created as a result of datafication. We have a data asymmetry, meaning that those that need data quite often don't have access to the data that is already collected, including their own data. We have information asymmetries, by which I mean is that there is a lack of transparency on how data is being collected and subsequently analyzed and used. And then more importantly, and that's also what Roger was referring to, we have an agency asymmetry, the fact that we actually have no agency, quite often disempowered in a data space or a data ecosystem, so that we cannot identify and determine how our data and the data of our communities are being used. That in itself has led to new kind of power asymmetries, new kinds of inequalities, reinforced existing inequalities, and to a large extent, I would argue, it also challenges democracy as we know it. So we need to come up with new solutions. And unfortunately, fact number three is that our existing data governance toolbox is not capable of addressing the new asymmetries, the new challenges that we have seen. To a large extent, the existing data governance toolbox actually originated 30 years ago with the fair information practice principles, which are still a fundamental bedrock, but they are not sufficient anymore in order to provide the agency, in order to provide in order to address the asymmetries that we have. And that leads us to the need for digital self-determination, which is an innovative new principle, a new concept that seeks to address those asymmetries that I have identified earlier, and also enables us to start using data in a way that benefits everyone. And so digital self-determination is really the concept, the premise, the principle that individuals and communities and groups in society are empowered to determine how the data is being managed so that all parties benefit, not only the data holder, but all parties benefit, and that society at large is better off. That also means, and I think Roger already identified, anyway, the individual and the collective aspect and the need for trusted data spaces, but it also means that we need empowerment across the data lifecycle, meaning that we need to be able to understand and be able to determine what are the questions that inform the collection in the first place, because frankly, not only data is being collected and there is no empowerment to determine how it is collected, we're quite often disempowered to even formulate the question that informs the collection in the first place. And then subsequently, we need, of course, determining how the data is stored, hence data spaces, but also how it is subsequently be used. Now, I'm going to stop here. I can also reflect later on how you actually establish digital self-determination, but that's perhaps worthy for a discussion in the panel or for a follow-up question as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Stefan. So I'm just going to move on to Pranav. So as both a person with a visual disability, but also a technologist, could you maybe share how you feel about the idea of digital self-determination and how it finds resonances with disability justice?
Thanks, Padmini. As I've had around 5 years in technology, and I'm going to start by saying it's absolutely of the essence that technology in today's day, as it grows, is becoming a larger center of our lives. And from my experiences, more so the lives of those who are disabled. I was trained in using various forms of technology, such as screen readers, at the age of 7, when my school foresaw the sustainability problems in systems such as Braille to write in the future. And it's a very interesting question, because I've been pondering this question for a few years now, and it's very, first of all, it's very important that digital self-determination be established, more so for those who cannot or who have a disability, whether that be current, temporary, or permanent. Because as a person with disability, the reliance on technology, it goes up. It goes much higher, and it becomes a daily need. I can give you some examples, such as I use my phone and apps on my phone to read text every single day. And what that does is all of this is stored in the cloud as data. And so it's very important that someone who, a person with disability, have the control to manage their data, to manage what they are perceived as, and to be able to manage their own technology. One of the examples of this that I brought up recently was the voting polls that we have recently seen in Bangalore. And my question to a person was, I didn't really know how the polls worked at the time. And I asked, they use some sort of a kiosk for people to vote. And is this kiosk accessible? Because as a person with disability, I don't want to have to tell someone what my vote is. I should have the right to keep that information to myself. And what's happening in today's day and age is that is being sort of undermined. I'll give you another example. I had an app once prompt me to ask for sighted assistance if I wanted to buy something. And that cuts off on my digital self-determination, because at the end of the day, what does it mean? It means that I can operate my technology and make my technical decisions on my own. And so it's very important that that is considered. Now, there are a few ways, or rather a few challenges that I'm going to bring up. First of all is that voting poll thing. I don't want someone else to know what the choices that I am making, because that person can then influence those choices. There are also some other problems in terms of data being, say, too visual or catered towards one audience, or any technology being catered to one audience in general. I'm going to take some examples, such as certain websites or videos not being captioned. Then I rely on someone else to tell me the information. And what happens there is, then if I'm relying on that person, the person then has the ability to modify the information, or to withhold information, or to shut it off if they don't think it's something that I should be getting. Finally, there is the problem of sub-power or half-baked accessibility, which in some cases can actually be more of a problem than not having accessibility. And the reason why it can be a problem is because you can have access to certain, I'm going to give you an example where if you have a system that's not accessible, you have access to no menus at all. But if you have a system that's sort of accessible, you can access certain menus at a point, but then you're stuck after a certain point. And then to do it again means to go back from the starting point with a guide. Now, of course, I'm going to end on the policy side of things, because these are problems that can be addressed through policy, but there are also problems that are they're at that level where a lot of regulations, and we have talked about this extensively in multiple areas, a lot of regulations either are not committed enough in some areas, or are not implemented well enough. There is no awareness of accessibility from the top, and there is no penalty for the lack of the same that hinders digital self-determination from the top. It's something that was mentioned just now, is a hindrance, where the asymmetry of not having a system to regulate is a big problem. And the other problem that we face here is that we have regulations that are spread too thin around the world, where each and every region, be that the Asia Pacific region or the EU, they have their different regulations, which makes it very hard to develop a product. It makes it very hard to regulate universally, and it makes it very hard to cover all ground. I'm going to stop here, but these are problems, the solutions to which we can explore in further discussions as well, because there are many. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Pranav. Right, I'm going to move to Nidhi now. So Nidhi, I was hoping that maybe Pranav's already kind of outlined some of this, but if you could speak to maybe how your lived experience as a person living with visual disability has been shaped by the digital, both as a means to accessing the world, but also maybe as a hindrance to self-determination.
Okay. I have a quick accessibility question. Unfortunately, because of traffic, I haven't been able to reach a particular place. I'm just wanting to ask if you can see my video clearly, else I would just turn it off.
Nidhi, I think we've lost connectivity.
I can hear you very clearly. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are now. Yeah. You just
sorry
for a second.
I was doing a quick accessibility check. I was just wanting to ask, are you able to see my video, or I'm happy to turn it off?
We can see your video, but feel free to turn it off if it makes it more comfortable for you.
No. Okay. No. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Point of View and Swiss for organizing this. It's always been interesting. You know, I was a part of the first studio, and I'm just listening to the conversations, the way they have evolved, the way they're moving forward, the kind of discussions that we're having. It's very interesting to see as a person with a disability, but also as someone who's been working with the community really, really closely. I want to divide, you know, of course, come with some personal experiences, but also come with a sense of, collective experiences of others. So thinking about what digital does to self-determination, I want to think of it through self-expression, right? And I want to start with something positive to share. What does technology, and probably there'll be some overlaps with Pranav, with both of us having similar disability. So thinking about what this expression means. For me, technology brings a lot of freedom, right? For me, technology brings the possibility to have the self-expression and the choice both. Now, what's the choice that it brings? The choice that it brings is that I choose to communicate with people in a certain way. So very often when I leave voice notes, people think it's because I'm blind, I'm leaving voice notes. And they immediately are apologetic and they say, we didn't know your accessibility need. We've written back to you. I hope it's okay. And I say, that's the beauty of this technology on WhatsApp, that I choose to send a voice note. It's not like I cannot type with my software, but I'm a person who likes to talk. So I choose to send that voice note, right? So I think for me, that's self-expression. There are different kinds of apps that are available, even assistive apps that would link up, have AI support people with visual disability or who are blind and low vision to see or read labels or connect with objects. There's the similar app, but you can connect with volunteers, right? Who can do the same task for you. And it's hilarious because, when we're at home, I have a partner who has low vision. He will always go for the app that connects with AI or uses AI to respond and support. I would always go with the app that has the human connect. And that's why I say that technology and assistive technology, assistive apps, specific apps, as well as the gendered ones, really bring home to me or allow me to express or be the person I am. Right? So by connecting to a volunteer, it's not that I cannot use the AI technology. It's my preference to have a human connect. Now, while I speak of all the positive things, what this technology also does when, as Pranav mentioned, there is lack of awareness around accessibility guidelines. And when technology is built, it does a couple of things, right? It makes a broader social statement first of who is expected to be using this technology. So when banking and financial apps and websites are inaccessible, when payment gateways are inaccessible, for me, it's not just an individual problem. The problem is it's a macro issue or a social issue or a mindset issue or something that's combined. The lack of accessibility in this area or even the lack of emphasis tells me that we're still not thinking of people with disabilities as someone who will be using these platforms. Right. We're not looking at them as people who would be earning. We're definitely not looking at them as people who would be paying others. So as a social entrepreneur, as someone who heads an organization, for me, it's the question saying, did you not think that there would be disabled leaders? Did you not think that disabled people could employ others? That you did not think you could make an accessible accounting software in India, right? So these are the larger questions, the systemic questions, the systemic barriers which raise larger social questions for me. That what is the lens on disability that we're still seeing through inaccessibility? I mean, self-determination comes next for me, but it is really determination of what community the disability community is viewed as. The second thing that it does is, as a woman with a disability, and I do want to bring the gender angle in this, because what happens, we always tell women that we need to work on livelihoods. We need to work on employment. We link a lot of employment, independence, and violence together. What it does to women with disabilities in both rural and urban settings, when you, one, make the physical and digital infrastructure, and we're talking about the digital infrastructure, inaccessible. Two, make it super complicated. So one, they cannot manage their own finances. They're already fighting against the complex lens of disability as well as gender. There is a lot of many women who are educated are basically, they give up their finances and say, oh, my brother's managing this, or my father's, I don't know what happens in my bank account, right? There are many women who are not allowed to spend. But when women with disabilities do not have this access, and very similar to a question of maybe even privacy, right? Why should I be inviting someone to assist me make that payment? Why should someone see what's the balance in my account? Why cannot I have that privacy or independence of buying, purchasing, managing a household, right? So the payment gateway is inaccessible, but the e-commerce app is inaccessible. And so what it does is re-stigmatizes me as a woman with a disability. And it says, oh, you're not a woman enough because you can't take care of the household. We told you so. But it was not me who cannot take care of the household. It's the apps that create a barrier. I have money in my account. I have the e-commerce app downloaded to buy the vegetables in the grocery, but I simply cannot do that because someone somewhere has decided that women with disabilities and people with disabilities will not be caregivers within a home. So I think it raises very important questions in terms of self-determination, to also think that and the last piece that I want to say is reproductive choices, right? And I do want to bring this in to think about SRH within this context of technology. And two of the examples, one of which I've already given before, when apps are, and there are these such amazing conversations of, oh, now there are apps that deliver to your doorstep in about under 10 minutes or within half an hour. And I was talking to one of my friends, and she said it was so amazing because I had forgotten, because of my hectic travel, to buy a sanitary napkin, and it reached me in 10 minutes. And I said, great, good for you, because as a blind woman, when these apps are inaccessible, I am not allowed to be human enough to forget ordering sanitary napkins for the next month, right? But also as a blind woman, when technology tells me there are home pregnancy kits, which give you only a visual cue, or there are COVID testing kits, which later became better, or there are COVID apps, etc. Let's stick to reproductive choices. So pregnancy home kits, which give you a visual cue, you are basically expected to either not have the privacy, not have the choice, or just not be sexually active. So, it's really, for me, what technology and self-determination looks like is it raises larger systemic questions, social questions, and questions of who's expected to be in which spaces. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nidhi, for those, amazing kind of insights, obviously drawing from lived experience, but also things that I feel are just not evident to most people. So thank you very much for sharing those with us. So Prateek, moving to you. So one way in which we have brainstormed the potential for digital products during these studios is this idea of envisioning dream machines. And we've been working with both with people with disabilities as well as designers and stakeholders in the disability space. And what we found is that what disabled users would like is to feel safe, comfortable, and joyful. And so Prateek, your company, AssistTech Foundation, has done an amazing job in bringing some of these dream machines, in a sense, to life. So could you please just tell us a little bit about how your organization kind of encourages and nurtures this kind of creation? Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and good evening to all of you guys. I first like to request all of you to give a big round of clap to all the phenomenal speakers before me, Stefan, Pranav, and Nidhi. Typically, if you have Nidhi speaking before you, you don't have much to share anymore. Yeah, so Nidhi, thank you so much. She's still around. We'll come to the whole self-determination part of it, but when I think of digital, it has changed our lives so much. Yeah. Please raise hands if you have been to bank in last 1 month. Wow. 1, 2, 3. My father used to take half a day holiday just to draw 1,000 rupees from the bank, isn't it? Some of you are very young, so I know. Thinking, like, what is he saying? But if you see the way we bank today is transformed, yes. The way we order food is transformed. The way we traveling is transformed, and everything around us is, thanks to the digital and the technology, we are probably living in the new world. But when we think about world around people with disabilities, we're still talking about issues which Pranav, Nidhi, and everybody of us are talking about. We're talking about basic, grocery. Somebody told me Yahoo had in their website 127 links. So you can practically not browse through Yahoo website, while Google probably had 3. Swiggy and Zomato are not accessible, or were not accessible. I don't know if still they are. And hence, a friend of mine who's a person with disability tells that when you become, or when you are a person with disability, life is so expensive.
Right. Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah. See, when at ATF, we built this whole ecosystem where we now work with 400 startups who are technology entrepreneurs working to solve problems of people with disabilities, and they're all with all kinds of disabilities. So we're talking about somebody building AI-based solution to have independent mobility. Some of it is in the market, some of it obviously is like you said, dream machine. So there is a dream part of it. But when ATF, which is the organization which I co-founded, thinks about digital self-determination, we think about 3 things. The first is about autonomy.
Right.
And it's about choices and control together. And I know Nidhi was talking about a choice of sending a voice note. But then it is also about choice of choosing the method to study. Now, COVID has taught us that a lot of us can learn digital as well. Yeah. So a lot of startups, for example, are building solutions, digital solutions to help improve the learnability. And it's not only about school kids. So yes, there are solutions where people are using augmented reality and virtual reality solutions to help kids with autism learn better, because they go through, as all of us know, about individual education plans. And how about using technology to really record how a kid with autism respond to certain methods versus other. Hence, we are not replacing, technology is not replacing humans. It's helping, complementing humans to do their job better. And this is one of the examples. The second thing we talk about is competence and building those skills. At ATF, we build a digital platform called Adi Dwara. It's a Sanskrit word. Adi is the beginning. Dwara is a door for infinite opportunities. And we are talking about giving opportunities not to just learn, but upskilling as well. A lot of people with disabilities, when they get into jobs, they stay in those roles forever. And hence, how do we upskill people with not just, like we upskill, there are hazard, platforms which has come up, to train and upskill people. But then how do you really put the same method to upskill people with disabilities so they can aspire and do higher roles? The second thing is about livelihood, and it's just not about getting into traditional jobs. I'm sure many organizations have done this phenomenal job of matching disability and jobs available. And I think today we are putting such a big limitation when we think about the such job mappings. And I think our point of view is to how do you really use digital to explore more beyond. And third is about living. So it's building competency. And third and the last is about relatedness, which is about building community, having presence in social media, giving the voices, able to express and create that whole awareness that we need to come up with not, a special provisions. We're talking about, inclusion. We're talking about equal opportunity. So autonomy, second is competence, and third is relatedness is how I would relate to. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we're a little short on time. So I would just ask everyone, all our speakers, if you could just name one crucial step that you think needs to be taken in order to create a world where digital self-determination for people with disabilities seems realistic and possible. So Pranav, do you want to go forward?
Awareness.
Awareness, right? Great, thank you.
Making data intelligent. So intelligent data.
Okay, could you maybe explain a little bit?
Again, data is the truth. Every time we are working, traveling, eating, ordering, we're generating data. But how do you really put that intelligence so that it analytics, artificial intelligence, all those are tools and mechanisms and technologies to make data intelligent. So we are able to predict better and build technologies which are more inclusive.
Right, great, thank you. Stefan, Would you?
Yeah, no, it's always hard to ask and surface one because it's a multi-layered challenge, of course. But I would say we need new participatory processes to actually engage people and especially vulnerable communities in co-designing the solutions, co-designing the technology, co-designing how we start using data, so that you have a social license for actually using the data or for designing a technology that is aligned with the expectations and the needs and the desires of those that you seek to serve or those that can benefit from it.
Fantastic, thank you. And Nidhi, if you're still with us.
Yes, I'm here with you. So thanks. Awareness was my 1 point, co-designing was second. So I get to say a third one. I think making skill building for the ecosystem mandatory. And I'd just like to explain in a sentence that when we're talking about design schools, web development courses, we're talking about architecture for the physical infrastructure, all of this, right? Management courses. So when you're going to become entrepreneurs, in all of these courses to have mandatory skill building around disability inclusion, not just as an awareness, but how do you do it, right? I think that's extremely important. And that will follow the awareness and work towards co-design.
Great, thank you so much. And actually, I mean, it's very validating to hear you say that, because for those of you who were here during the studio, that's, I think, one of the biggest takeaways we had from today, which is that how do we make this part of the conversation from a very young age. So we had George, who is in the room, who suggested that it should be inclusive from when young children are going to school. They should be in inclusive institutions. That kind of makes the whole idea of people with disabilities very familiar. Pranav was suggesting that high school is the age where you're kind of very hungry for knowledge and want you to learn new things. So it's a great time to introduce these concepts. And we in fact had a question on Zoom which was about this, exactly this, that whether schools that are training people to be MBAs, do they actually have an accessibility component? And in India, it seems that this really isn't the case. But what is very exciting is that one of the outputs that we're hoping to create from these workshops is an accessibility curriculum. And in fact, a lot of the work that has kind of emerged from the studios has really confirmed our belief that that's something that is really necessary. So I think we're going to wrap up there because it's just a minute to 7:30. Sorry, we can, okay, so then can we do questions? Yeah, okay, great. Then we can open up to questions from the audience if anyone has anything that they would like to ask or share. Go for
While we
it.
get the question, I
Yes.
just want to add that we are helping several technology institutions in the country, including IIT Madras, to help develop some of the curriculum and accessibility.
Oh,
so we're happy
excellent.
to share that knowledge.
Right, that would be amazing. Yeah, yeah. I think, I mean, what we had, like one of the workshops that we had today was with designers and developers, and there's so much goodwill, there's so much kind of desire to make their products accessible, but there's just no provision of skilling up, or and also of course institutional kind of obstacles as well. But absolutely. Anyone want to? Yes. Yeah.
Hello? Yeah, am I audible? Yeah. Just, speaking as someone who was lucky enough to discover reading apps and everything, a lot, as much as I love hearing designers and think about technologies that will aid people with disabilities, speaking from the Indian experience, especially when you get down to the most basic level, like schools and everything, so much of what is, improving one's life in India for so many Indians comes down to, unfortunately, exams. It comes down to marks. It comes down to either like your parents are probably like, I'm going to force you to be an engineer or something that will, you could pass that one exam and your life will be fixed. So for me, it was only when I came to Bangalore, accidentally found out that, oh, there is a provision for people with dyslexia and other disabilities, and I can go sit in a different classroom. And more than anything, I felt included for the first time, because I was given 1 hour extra before everyone, as opposed to after the exam and everything. But don't want to talk too much, but basically, in thinking about something as ubiquitous as exams in a country like India, and thinking about a country like India, which is constantly so get in line kind of a man, which is not going to change anytime soon. What is it? What can technology, more than just as a teaching thing, like as an experience, like as a platform that everybody is now also going to, much like an exam hall or thing like that. What does it mean to address the masses as, particularly experiential thing? I don't know. If anyone can talk to this, I would be very, very happy to hear. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. And if I can just quickly tag something onto that, I think obviously COVID changed the whole kind of education and exam landscape. So whether anything kind of changed because of that. Yes, Pranav.
This is not, I'm gonna give you an example of a system that's not an Indian first system, but it is one that I think a lot of exam or a lot of competitive platforms could learn from, which is the digitization of the popular SAT standardized exam. It was done this year and I've given 2 attempts. One actually, in fact, just 2 days back. And the thing that I noticed about it is that the way they have approached accessibility is one which, what it does is it approaches the self-determination aspect of it more than accessibility.
Interesting.
And what I mean by this is that they've given me choice of whether I want to use a tactile, an image description, or both. Or whether I want someone to come there and describe the image to me. Whether I want 50% extra time, 100% or more. Whether, okay, I am like nearly done with the exam, but I want to break, I really got to go to the washroom. Whether I can take an unscheduled break at my own peril. And if I understand that it's at my own peril, then it's fine. And in fact, I would actually recommend all of you, if you're up for a challenge, to absolutely try it. The app is called Blue Book, and it can be downloaded from College Board's website for Windows, Mac, and Linux. You can actually take a practice SAT and tell me how badly or well you did.
I think the challenge is going to be the math, not the accessibility.
Yes, exactly.
Sure.
Now,
been a long time.
The second one that I want to talk about is more of a way that exams have been approached by the Cambridge board. And it's something that, here's the funny thing. In India, I have a friend who's studying in the ICSE board, and I was appalled at the lack of awareness of accessibility or accommodations that are available. Because I was given prolific choice. I was given the choice of whether I want my question paper in PDF, a Word document, or any other format, or whether I want it in Braille, or with a scribe to read it out, or reader to read it out, or whether I wanted all of them, or any combination of them, or whether I wanted to write my answers in. So let me give you an example. On Wednesday, I wrote, or Tuesday rather, I wrote a computer science exam for the Cambridge board. And the way I did it is I wrote some of my answers in a Word document. And then any answer that required a table or any sort of filling in, I asked a scribe to do it. Not because I could, or even my mathematics exams that I've been taking for the past few years, I could have done it on a laptop, but I chose to use a scribe. The reason is because I just found it more comfortable. And that's what I think is most important, is that technology gives you the choice to do what you want and how you want to take the exam. So in India, currently, the unfortunate situation is that we don't really have the technology to really experience any sort of an examination well. In fact, I recently gave a tabla exam, and to register for it was a royal pain in every single part of my body. And I mean this both literally and figuratively, because it was so much scrolling using my hand. Because the website actually had controls that were not visible. So I had to use my dad's help.
Right.
And I was lucky that my dad understood accommodations, but in a lot of places, parents don't actually understand accommodations well. In the sense that a parent might actually, in fact, I've heard this multiple times, a parent might be opposed to extra time because they might not understand the utility of it. And so then I'm robbed of my choice. Because then the parent, in fact, the parent might think it's a waste of their time and in some cases money, and just not click on it. So I feel like there are not many technologies in India created by India for this, but there's starting to be an influx of technology from other sources. Big shout out to College Board. And I think it's technology that could be adopted by many Indian competitive exams to make them doable, writable, accessible, and exams that to make them opportunities for blind or visually impaired. Because I don't know how many of you here may have written the JEE competitive exam, but from what I've heard, it is not a fun day in accessibility. So or any online competitive exam that's been in India. But it's changing as people get awareness. In fact, recently ICSC allowed a laptop and CBSE as well. So there is hope for it, and there are technologies to set an example. So that's sort of my take on it. I'm sure someone could add more. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else want to add anything? Although Pranav, I think you're the one with the most recent exam experience. So you're probably the expert there.
He figured out playing tabla is easier.
Then giving an exam. Yes, yeah.
Okay. Hi. Hi, Padmi. We do not talk too much. I'm sorry I came late. So my name is Ritash. This was at a meeting I mentioned yesterday and earlier also. Some of us have invisible disabilities, right? Physical or mental, both, whatever. For instance, I have lived with flat feet all my life and only serendipitously discovered that it's actually considered a disability in some countries. But I didn't know it is commonly classified as a deformity. Okay, till I started traveling more frequently in public transport, and I would get not stamped but stomped because my feet always stand point outside, It's so difficult to get footwear, which is common for that. And luckily I'm not that tall, but imagine if I had total flat feet and I was also I keep sharing this with friends. So you don't realize till the effects, I can slip on dry, rough roads, surfaces and stuff like that. And over time, I'm discovering that my lower back ache is many times due to that. And luckily now, apparently, they're like flexible and detachable. So where does this stop, And for me, from the beginning, whenever I hear about somebody has to certify, even for visible disabilities, people have to get certificates like and percentage. I mean, being a queer person too, definitely we do not like this third gender, fourth gender. Similarly, I always cannot digest this fact that you have to also get a disability rating. Yeah. So this is just an observation. People can respond or whatever, but I wanted to share. Thank you.
No, thanks for sharing, Atash. I mean, this was something that came up today. So basically, if you are between 1% to 40% disabled, you are not considered eligible for benefits, right? And above 40% is when you are, but there is assessment criteria, but that is often not consistent. And of course, the way to avail of welfare is through the UDID, which is a special identity card for people with disabilities, which is also incredibly challenging to actually obtain because the website itself apparently is not accessible. So yeah, so there's definitely some kind of irony in that, but I don't know whether anybody on the panel would like to kind of address this idea of this kind of metrics of disability and whether you think it's helpful. Yes, Pranav.
Yeah, you get to hear me again.
That's right.
I completely agree with you, because I don't think disability in many cases can be objectified. And that's another thing. I was looking at the UK's, I was told initially by a friend, and I was looking at the UK's system for support, for all the praise that we give that wonderful country, is also based very stringently on a rating system.
Right.
And the problem that you sometimes face is that disabilities can deteriorate and change over time.
Yes. Yeah.
But often, in some cases, to change your rating or to get it changed and to update your disability is not a fun outing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because once it's set in stone, as you first of all mentioned, that the UDID system, for example, in India, it's not accessible at all.
Yeah.
And if my disability gets worse, so does the experience of trying to navigate the website to get my card updated.
Absolutely,
if getting the card itself is so hard, for them to verify the change in disability and for them to update it is that much harder.
Sure. Yeah.
And the other thing that I would like to mention is sometimes people are is this process of verification of disability. It is absolutely necessary, because there can be bad actors coming in and claiming false disabilities to get benefits. But the problem is that sometimes people don't want to share their disabilities with other people. And by share, I mean, people probably may not want to show it, want to keep it hidden. This is not me. I mean, I do wear glasses, and that's not a reason. But there are people who wear glasses to hide the fact that they have keratoconus or a retina disability that causes them to not be able to see.
Right.
And sometimes this can cause problems in verification.
Right.
The third part that I want to mention is actually in the fact that you're trying to classify people. And when you're rating people out of disabilities, it often creates an exclusionary environment. And it creates a hierarchy where the higher rated people are then some sort of subconsciously more in power, if you know what I mean, than the lower rated people. It's society and capitalism all over again. And that completely ruins the support system that you're trying to create.
Yes. Right.
At the same time, though, trying to give everyone the same amount of support can also be challenging, because then what if someone with incontinence, which I'm not sure if all of you know, it's a disability in the bowel that causes people to have to go use avail the restroom at times that they cannot control. And it very often, in fact. What if people with certain levels of incontinence require more support than people with lower levels of incontinence? How do you then divide your resources? Because at the end of the day, this is still a commerce game, right? You have resources, you have way less resources than the people that you actually have in the world. And you need to allocate those resources efficiently. And the problem with giving everyone equal amount of resources is that some people might get less of the resources. And I guess in some cases, some people might get too much of resources that could be reallocated. For example, I cannot see, and I don't really need as much because I know how to function. But someone who cannot see or hear needs, say, if I don't need a braille display, they need a braille display. But then if everyone is offered, say they may need 2 braille displays to work on the phone and the laptop at once. If everyone is offered 1 braille display, then there is the entire process of reallocation of resources, and we get back to the rating system. So at the end of the day, to standardize aid that is provided, a rating system is unfortunately what is the best solution right now.
Yeah.
However, I'd love to hear, I personally cannot think of one right now, unfortunately. I'd love to hear any other proposed solutions of providing aid.
Right.
Maybe one could be where a person comes in and says, look, I need XYZ aid, like the Cambridge board manages. And in fact, that is another problem with the rating system, where they assume the aid that you require.
Right.
And it provides, coming back to the self-determination point, right?
Yeah.
What if I need different aid?
Yeah.
So that could be a solution, but I'm always open, and I'd love to hear others as well. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
I think George has a question.
Oh, okay. Okay. George.
Yeah, no, we are talking about this certification. A one-eyed man is 30% disabled according to the table.
Right.
Now, he is neither disabled by and does not get any kind of concessions.
Right. Right.
Probably in some of the universities, they might get the accommodation, but no concessions, no reservation. But when it comes to government jobs and employment, when the medicals happen, they are rejected.
Right. Right.
So they are neither here nor there.
Yeah. Right.
And that's the problem with this under 40%
right.
Impairments. Yeah. So thank you.
Thanks very much for that, George. Okay, I think we're going to wrap up now, but thank you so much for listening and for your questions. I don't think we have time, but we have drinks, so you can ask more questions over drinks. Thank you very much, Nidhi, and thanks so much, Stefan, for joining us.
And where are the drinks for us? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Courier wine to your car. The digital economy should enable these things.
No, thank you so much for having us. This was lovely. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just grab.
Almost done. Thank you so much to our wonderful panelists. I just get to say a word of thanks now, and actually would love to invite the teams of Point of View, Design Beku, Signable to all come up on stage for a final thank you. A final vote of thanks. This could not have been possible without the active involvement, participation over months and over a year for some of us. Come on up, don't be shy. Chandrakan, come. I'll move over so there's more room on stage. And now we can give all of these wonderful people a big round of applause. And with that, I would say that we can officially conclude the event and transition into networking. Yeah, please come on up on stage.
Yes, thank you. No.
Now we can do it this way. All right, enjoy the rest of the evening. We will have some hors d'oeuvres served. There's some wine and other refreshments coming right out. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.